Hello, and welcome to our special 4th of July edition. You know, my generation, the one known as baby boomers, have been alive for 25% of this young country's history. And the thing that's made us different than all of the other generations before us is that we've seen history occur right before our eyes. And all of that started with television. Today, we're going to tell a story about a boy growing up in the 50s and how television slowly creeped into his life and changed his whole perspective and narrative on our society. Dear Andrew, well, it's 2036 and you've made it to your 21st birthday. I recorded this in 2019 to tell you some of the things that happened during my first 20-some years. Maybe someday we can find a way to get together and share notes. My earliest memory was watching the trains flying by the front of my house. They were so loud they shook the dishes in the cabinet. Some of them were still locomotives, but they were mostly gone by then. We had a telephone in our house, most people did by then, and it connected with a cord to the wall. And your great-great-grandmother, well, she worked as an operator and she connected all the different cords together and we were able to talk to each other. Your great-grandfather, well, he worked for a television station and he was a smart guy. He actually built our first TV set and temporarily used a cardboard box for the cabinet. Dwight Eisenhower was the first president I remember. He had a campaign slogan that said, "I like Ike," and it had a hologram with his picture on it. I kept that button for a lot of years. My older brother Daniel and I, well, we were good friends. We shared the same room and he always watched after me. I always walked to school. I don't know why. I think I was just too impatient to wait for the bus. Anyhow, I walked. And I played a lot of baseball, and I won some games and I lost some games and learned different things from both experiences, but I think it made me a better adult. Usually we just built our baseball fields in an empty lot somewhere, and if somebody built a house on it, well, we'd just find another empty lot. I had to write with ink a lot in school, and because I was left-handed, I always had a blue hand smearing it across the paper. It always cost my grades a little bit. The one thing that we really feared during that time was nuclear attack, especially during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was a scary time. The teachers told us, well, if there's an attack, crawl under your desk, which seems kind of silly now, crawling under a wooden desk, but I guess they wanted us to feel like we were doing something and make us feel safer. They'd wheel a TV set into our classroom sometimes, and other classes would come down and join us, and we would watch that TV as astronauts circled the Earth. It was unbelievable. Years later, my dad and I stayed up late, and we watched the first man walk on the moon. We didn't have any air conditioning back then, and we played outside, and sometimes if we had just a little bit of money, we'd go down to the air-conditioned drugstore, we'd get ourselves a Coke, and we would sip it as slowly as we could before they kicked us back outside into the heat. Paul's gas station was only one door down from our house, and he pumped my mom's gas for 27 cents a gallon, washed her windshield, and always made sure that I had a sucker shaped like a street sign. You could get a good-sized candy bar for only a nickel. Cokes they were smaller, but they only cost a dime, and if you brought back your bottle, they gave you a couple pennies. Your great-uncle Larry, he had a Corvette, and you could buy a new one back then for $4,500. Eddie's mom used to give us a ride to the ice rink in the town next to us, and we'd skate there every night, it seemed like, and it was a lot of fun in the wintertime. The minimum wage back then was $1. But I only made 65 cents because I was 11 and my employer took advantage of me. But you know, I didn't care. I had money, and my friends and I were plotting to take a trip to Wrigley Field on the bus. And one day we did. We saw the Chicago Cubs play. And you know what? It wasn't that hard. Turns out we went a bunch of times after that, and we never got caught once. The 50s really ended in 1963 when President Kennedy was shot. Up until then, we were still breathing the euphoria of the 50s and the prosperity that followed World War II. But after that, things were different. People started getting angry at each other and rising up. And there were feelings that bubbled up that I didn't even know were there. One man, he tried to pull us all together, but he got shot also. After that, things really got all torn up. People were burning in cities like Chicago and Los Angeles and other places, and people were taken to the streets to protest the war in Vietnam. It was a very controversial war, and in some cases it turned fathers against sons and brothers against brothers, and sometimes even soldiers against soldiers. And Andrew, all this stuff was happening at the same time that we were watching it on TV, and it was really hard to figure out what you should be doing. Your grandmother and I, we got married when we were 19 and a half, and she worked as a nurse and put me through college, and she worked nights for an extra 10 cents an hour. It was the beginning of a lifetime of sacrifice that she would make for me and for all of her family. Everybody knew somebody that either was at Vietnam or was already in Vietnam, and almost everybody knew somebody that never came home from Vietnam. Andrew, I hope that you always remember the people that sacrificed for your freedom, and that you'll appreciate it every day of your life. Have a good life, grandson. Grandpa. Our fallen heroes truly did pay the ultimate price for the things we love, even the buildings that we build. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.